Hey, Money Vikings, welcome back. I think I got a really interesting one for you today, and it has to do with what to do and how to manage an inheritance. Now, rest assured, this is going to be valuable for people that do not get an inheritance. And the fact of the matter is, most people do not get an inheritance. But it is starting to happen a little more and more as older generations pass away. There is going to be quite a bit of a wealth transfer. Obviously, a lot of older generations have had a lot more time to amass wealth. And as they pass on, hopefully there's a good living trust or will in place that handles how those assets will be transferred upon their passing. But for a lot of people, it can be overwhelming. And I do have a few thoughts on it that I think will be helpful. And we'll go through some of the statistics here. And then I'm also going to bring up what Fidelity talks about in terms of how to handle an inheritance. But first of all, I want to say a couple things. I do appreciate the comments and emails that come in, and I make an attempt to respond to everyone. If I don't, I apologize, but I will try to respond to every comment. So if you want to leave a comment or just say hi, I will respond. I really enjoy it. I enjoy engaging with other people on their wealth building journey and inspiring each other to do better and better and to improve our lives. That's the whole point of the channel. That's why I'm doing this. So with that said, let's talk about ideas in terms of if you are fortunate enough to receive an inheritance. I do want to say though, if you don't receive an inheritance, this can still help you. And don't worry. The fact of the matter is, and the statistics bear this out, and also it's in a famous book called The Millionaire Next Door, which was very inspirational to me in my early 20s when I was starting out. And the fact of the matter is, most people do not receive any inheritance, and most millionaires do not receive an inheritance. So if you don't, it's okay. Doesn't mean you can't build wealth. You absolutely can. And that's what Money Vikings is all about in a lot of ways. But if you are fortunate to inherit some money, there are some, I think, some good practices that will help you make the most of that opportunity, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. First of all, let's do a couple statistics here. So I want to go through this really quick. On average, the average inheritance is almost $50,000. So that puts it into context. It's a nice sum of money. I wouldn't call it life-changing money, but I would say the average is pretty good if someone inherits $50,000. I think that can go a long way to help someone. And I'm going to talk about ways to do that, to maximize that opportunity. So just keep that in mind. So let's see, the top 1% and 10% of households by wealth receive so much that their estates pull the average up. Okay. So there you go. Less than a third of households inherit any money, and between 70 and 80% of households receive no inheritance at all. So it's not a huge number, but like I said, the things I'm going to talk about and the tips are actually helpful to all of us, to those of us who do not receive an inheritance. But I do think over time, over the next decade or two, there's going to be more and more people that are going to receive something. So let's go into it. Here's the averages. So top 1% of people, receive 718,000. So that's a real high end. That's actually life-changing, I'd say. The next 9%, the average inheritance is 174,000. The next 40%, it's about 45,000. That's, I think, the $50,000 number comes. Okay, with that in mind, let me go into what I would do, the top 3 things I would do, and then we're going to go into what Fidelity says. The first thing I would do is I'd write down a plan. You ought to write down, when you get that money, I would write down a plan for it, a written plan. And I would say start divvying it up and start thinking about it. Think about, let's just say it's 100,000. Okay, let's say you're fortunate enough to be in the $100,000 level. Okay, most people average is gonna be 50,000, but there's gonna be those out there that it's 100,000. Maybe you are, maybe you've had a hard time saving up for your children's college, and maybe that's something that's important to you. Well, what an opportunity. And also, what a way to honor the legacy of the person that passed away if you cared about them and loved them, which is probably the case in a lot of cases, to pay that forward and to do something that you could not do, which is save up for your child's, to help out with your child's college education. So there's an idea right there. So maybe it's a situation where the person, maybe it's not all of it, but maybe they take 25,000 and they put it aside to support a child's education, at least in some capacity, to help out a little bit. Okay. But again, the idea is they're writing down a plan. Okay. So they're saying, okay, 25,000 college education. Let's take that same fictitious person and say that they had a rough patch where they lost their job, and during that time they had to go into some debt. They had to put a lot of money on credit cards that they really didn't like doing. And let's say they have $25,000 on credit cards because they had a bump in their career, not a good bump, a problem patch, you could say. And so maybe they want to get rid of that debt, and maybe this is such a great opportunity to just write that check and whew, gone. What a relief. Can you believe? You just feel the relief and how that would help somebody, right? So that's another thing they'd write down. 25,000 to the kids all at college education, 25,000 pay off debt. And then let's take the same person and maybe they've had a hard time saving for their own retirement, and maybe they want to catch up a little bit. So maybe they take 25,000 of that and they say, you know what, I'm going to put 25,000 in my IRA and I'm going to beef up my future security, right, for myself. And then maybe there's 25,000 of that fictitious person that they need to just have fun money. Okay. And this is just, don't worry about it. Go out to dinner, go on a vacation, whatever it might be. Okay. Might be a really nice plan, but the idea is they wrote down a plan. And I think that goes a really long way to write down a plan. So that's my number one. What I would do would be write down a plan. Okay. My number two, I would set aside some amount that you're comfortable with for, don't worry about it money. Just call it crazy money, call it fun money, call it Vegas money. I don't know what you want to call it. But, my point is this. I think maybe it's, let's take the 100,000 example again. Maybe it's $10,000. And I think what that does is it's psychological. It gets that compulsive feeling out of the system, out of your system, out of your mind, where it's like, okay, there's 10,000 of this, or this 100,000, or whatever it might be for you, that you're just not going to worry about. And you're just going to be able to use it for whatever you want. And won't that be nice to just have that feeling and to get that out of your system? And then you're being responsible, quote unquote, with the other amount. So that's what I would do, the second thing, okay? I would work part of that on the flip side of that. There's the fun part. The flip side of that, I would lock some of it up. So talk a lot about this with a lot of things psychological with money, but sometimes we need to get out of our own way, and there needs to be friction between us messing with our money. This is exactly the problem with things like Robinhood, in my mind. I've dabbled with it, so I'm not against it. But people that are solely focused on using Robinhood, for example, there is no friction to being impulsive. And that's the problem with it. It's so quick to go on your phone, and it's gamified and it's fun and things, confetti pops and it's all this stuff going on. And you're swiping so quickly, you're not slowing down. So it's this sort of heat of the moment reactions to the market. And I think people are much more successful in the long run when they've got their retirement account in some sort of account where maybe they want to make adjustments, but there's some friction to that. They've got to go find a password, or they need to call an advisor and talk through it with them, but it's not this I can just, I'm driving or whatever. I'm on my coffee break and I'm freaking out and I'm listening to the news because the news is about freaking me out all the time. And then I'm just swiping to making decisions. I don't think that's going to work. I don't think that's going to be good for anyone in the long run. So I would say part of that is locking up some of that money. So getting a chunk of it, if you take the $100,000 example person, maybe you take half of it right away and you put it away in your investment retirement account. Maybe that's maybe the first move is just lock up 50,000. Then you make your list of the other 50,000. And so even if you kind of like blow it a little bit with the other 50,000, you've got that other amount that you locked up. And you've got to call someone, you have to go get a password, you have to like go, you have to jump through some hoops to get to it and start messing with it and tinkering and getting it and just being impulsive. That's the word, right? Okay. And my third top idea would be look at your weak areas financially and shore them up. This might be a great opportunity. It's kind of that first example, but this might be a great opportunity to shore up some weak areas. Okay. Maybe it's been very hard for you. I had this problem for several years. Maybe it's very hard to put together an emergency fund. So maybe you're doing fine with the automating. Maybe you're keeping the credit cards managed well. Maybe you're making smart decisions in terms of buying a car or buying a house. You're being thoughtful about all the big purchases. But maybe you're having a hard time getting some kind of emergency fund together. And maybe it's just you kind of get started. And I had the same problem. I'd kind of get started on it, and something would frankly break on the house or the car, and I'd use it. And I guess that was what it was for, emergencies. But I had to it was hard to get it replenished, right? So I think this might be a good opportunity to shore up those areas. So those are my top three. Let's go in real quickly here to what Fidelity says. Okay, here's some ideas that Fidelity has. So kind of along the lines of what I talked about, they said spend some of it, right? So there are ways to spend some of your inheritance that honor your loved ones. I think that's a great idea. I love that idea of thinking of the person that you inherited the money from and their life, if you cared for them and loved them. And not that it's a balancing act, okay? Not that they need to control or dictate what you do with the money, because I imagine that, their soul and their consciousness, they don't need money anymore, right? Money's not a thing for them anymore, because money is of this world. Money is of the physical world. It's a tool to manage our physical lives, our bodies, our homes, our, the things that we need, the physical things to move through life in this, in this human body, right? Well, they obviously don't have a need. They don't need the stuff. They don't need the money anymore. So I would say that maybe they, I don't really know, but the point of the matter is maybe there is a way to spend some that honors them. I'll give you an example. Maybe they had a dream of the family going on a special trip somewhere, a special trip to Hawaii or anywhere, right? I don't know. Maybe you make that happen with that money, and maybe that'd be a great way to honor them. So that's just a thought right there. Giving to charity, donating some in their name. What a wonderful way to help the world and to honor them. Okay. Let's see here. What else does it talk about? Getting organized. Organization is critical when there's any kind of loss in a family. That's why I'm a big fan of people talking about these things, getting organized before it happens. Okay. Living trust, will, all that stuff. Creating a clear inventory of the assets. That's important. Following what the living trust or the will says. Taking your time. I think that's really critical here. There's probably a few moments where you need to just slow down. Maybe it doesn't need to all be buttoned up in a month. Maybe it'll take you a year. I don't know. Maybe it'll take 6 months. If you have to sell a house or something, it's going to take time. Give yourself time. It's okay. Parking the money. This is kind of what I do like this idea of parking some money. That was the idea in my example where I said if you had 100,000, for example, and you just take 50,000 of it and you park it somewhere where it's hard to get to, like maybe a CD. CDs are paying like 4 or 5% right now, and it's totally safe, but you're going to lock that up for a year. You can't make an impulsive decision or an emotional decision. You have to actually think about it, think through it, right? Okay. Great time to learn the basics of investing. Watch the Money Vikings. Anyway, there's some ideas. Hey, I hope that helps you. I think those ideas will help you even if you do not inherit money, because a lot of people don't. But these are things that we could do even when on our own wealth building journey without inheritance. So hope you appreciate that. Bless you all. Thank you. Please leave a comment, subscribe, all that great stuff, share, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.